Okay, I'm in Maya at the moment just to go over a few overview things and see that we're all on the same page when it comes to prepping what we're sending over to Unreal. So first off, I've got a cube in the scene, or it was a cube, and I've squashed it down so that I can make it suitable for a wall. You don't have to do walls as a cube squash down, you can do them as a plane and just single-sided. I tend to do this if I'm having it as an environment that I can go inside and outside, just so I can see the two sides of the wall that I can apply different materials on, and also that little bit of thickness if I do need that. Right, so to get started, you don't want to leave it as a cube default name. So do make sure that you are renaming anything you have in the outliner. I've docked mine to the right hand side because I just prefer it over there. Other things to note actually that could be quite useful for you later is use of layers. You may not need it straight away when you've only got, say, one or two objects in there, but because when we want to export from Maya to Unreal, we want them to be at the world center, and we want the pivot to be in that area too. So I'll just show you, I have moved the pivot over. An easy way to do this is if you press insert on the keyboard, this is the pivot itself. You can use your snap functions up the top here. You can use snap to grid if that's easier, so it uses the grid lines to snap. You've got snap to vertices or points, so I can put it on either edge. I can't get it over there, but because I'm on the wrong one. There you go. So just make sure you're using the right arrow. But that's how you are able to snap your origin, your pivot point, to the bottom corner. And this is the easiest way to do it for when you're bringing it over to Unreal when it comes to modular items, because if I press insert, I'll come out of the pivot mode again. Generally, you're looking at stacking them next to each other. So for example, if I duplicate, so I've got another one, I can actually stack them next to each other. Don't forget, I've still got snapping, that's why it went quite easily over there. If you don't have snapping on, it's going to be like this, so it's a bit more free flowing. What it means is then you can stack them and they fit exactly next to each other, so you can't see that they are separate objects. That's the whole point of modular building. You will want to do this for your walls, your floors, when it comes to your main environment. So it's really important that you have your pivot point set up correctly. So looking at the channel box and layer editor section over here, because we will probably have a few items that we need to stack to the world center, it's smart to start using layers. If you have an object selected, I'm going to go for Quinn first just to show you this one, how that works. I'm going to create a new layer and assign the selected object using the right button there, and double click to give that a name. I'm just going to call it Quinn. We hopefully know what that is. And you can toggle visible, invisible I should say, on and off if you need to show and hide. Another way to do this is clicking on this button with the plus, and it says create new layer. This is one I want to add this object to, so I'm going to select the object. This is the wall that we're having, and I'm going to right click, add selected layer. So now it's added that to that layer. So I can call this one, generally you will probably need more than one wall. So for example, this is a wall without any windows on it, or doorways. You would, if you're looking at something modular here, be looking at making walls to suit windows and doors as well. So you probably will have a few to put in that layer when you have made more of those things. So anyway, when it comes to this wall, what we can do is we can apply different materials to it, so that you can see, say, an exterior material and interior in Unreal and you don't see that default Lambert one. Right, so when it comes to the wall itself, what I would like to do is hop over to the attribute editor and make sure we don't have Lambert 1 on it for a start. So what I'll do is I'll apply the material that's going to go to most of the object. This is the easiest way to do it. Whatever is going to cover most of that object, apply that first, because you can do that in object mode, and you can hold right click, assign new material. I'm going to go for a standard surface, and I'm going to just call that one exterior, or actually I should do M first, M underscore exterior wall. So that's what I would apply for most of that wall, and I'm just going to give it a little colour just so that we can see that something's on there, and it makes it a bit easier to work out where we have put materials on there. Right, and then I'm going to go into face mode by right clicking and just go into that face part, so we can see then it's on the whole object, that material at the moment. And what I do want to do now then is assign a material, a new material. I'll do another standard surface, and this is going to be the interior instead. So I'm going for M underscore interior wall, and again I'm just going to give it a little bit of colour just so I can easily see that something's on there. So we've got that blue, we've got that red in the middle. We've basically set up what we need in terms of the object itself. We've given it some slots, it's the right shape because we're just going for a very, very, very basic wall here. The other thing I just wanted to say before I move on is with the grid, these are the settings that I'm using. Originally your grid will be very small when it comes to Quinn, and we're using Quinn to check scalings and rough scalings and things, so that when we take over to Unreal, the object should look as we're expecting them to look. You can use real world scale if you want to. For this case, I'm just doing it by eye really when it comes to objects and what we're doing here. But if you feel like you want to work in an accurate way, certainly if you were doing something that needed to represent a real world environment, you will want to do that more accurately and actually spend time thinking about units. But when it comes to the grid, those are the settings I've got here, and that makes the grid a lot larger than we originally had, and you can still use it for snapping then, rather than it being too small to function for what we need. Okay, so that's how you get there, and that's how you get to the options, and then you would just apply it if you make any changes there. So just again, you have that to show and hide the grid, and then this for your settings for the grid. So if you can make it match my one, then it should look similar to what I've got here. I did share the Quinn setup with you as well though, so I've got a Maya file that you can download with Quinn already in there and the grid set up. So if you do download that one, you don't need to do that, but that's how you do it in case you need it later. So anyway, there's our object, that's our wall. When it comes to Hypershade, some of you might use this one to see the kind of materials we've got as an overview, and it makes it a bit easier to look at the node setup here. When it comes to selecting, you can, if you need to do this, go to select objects with material, and it just makes it a bit easier to kind of select faces when you need faces. If we just do that again. So sometimes you can use it as a bit of a quick select too. So let's say, for example, I just wanted to select all the objects or all the faces that had that material on. I can right click there and use that pop up just to select that area. It can be quite useful, obviously not for this very, very basic wall, but if you think about a bit more complicated objects, sometimes there's a lot going on and it can be a bit of a pain to select that area. So it's just a little handy thing I thought I'd just throw out there now while we're looking at stuff. When it comes to the UVs, they're probably not looking right. Yes, so we've got the default cube there, haven't we? So we need to do a little bit of work to make sure we've got the right UV layout for what we need there. What I would take a bit of time to do just for now is I'd go in edge mode. I'd select this edge here because I want the edges of the wall to unravel. We could do this in 2 parts if you want to do that, but let's see how this goes. For now, we probably will actually based on yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to go to cut UV edges there. So I'm going to add a seam in there. I'm also going to add a seam there because you see where it's white there and it's blue. The white parts are showing you where there's a seam already. So I'm going to just put a cut in there. And there's a seam at the bottom there too. And what else we've got? So let's just grab these 2. So I'm adding a cut there too. So we can see we've got a few seams in there now. They're together, but that's fine because I would like them to flatten out, and then the other side will flatten out. So they're going to look quite matching, the 2 edges. Oops, did not mean to press that. Okay, so once you've done that and you've added your seams where they need to go, we can, I think it's easier to go on UV shell. Oh, sorry, yeah, we've got some cuts now then. We select all the objects. You can shift select them or you can just grab them with your select tool. If you press unfold, now actually this is open because I was doing some stuff, but you may not see it straight away. You might have to expand some stuff out. Unfold is in this area here, which is called unfold anyway, so it's quite easy to get to. If you press unfold now, what it does is it uses the seams that I've set. They've been unraveled out now by using unfold. What I want to do is straighten the UV so they are aligned correctly, and then I want to click on the layout button here just to stack them all together. There is something that I need to do just to make sure that they are looking at the right size for what they need to be, and I just need to check the textile density for it. So that's going to be under the transform area, and you'll see this area here, textile density. If I see they're quite large for this area, so they're filling up that space now, or filling up the height. What I want to do, I don't want anything to get taller than that, so I'm going to click on get here, and what I'll do is I'll just check the one next to it should be the same. If I press set and it changes, it's because they're not the right scale for each other. Okay, so they're all matching actually now, so that's a good sign. But I do want to show you an example of, let's say if one was scaled bigger than the other. If I said get on this one and then I said set on that one, can you see how then it makes that size match? Because we know they're walls and each side is exactly the same, they should match in size really if they were the same textile density. So that's what we're seeing, it's actually happening. Now that's too big for our map because we can't get everything on there. So we're going to get that one because we know that fits nicely in there, and then set. So layout actually did a pretty good job this time. When we did press that layout button, it did manage to get it all in there correctly. It doesn't always happen though, which is always a good thing to check this one, so that we know that the resolution is going to match up and that we're not going to have any problems later where the scaling of that looks completely different to the scaling of the walls. So it does look like it's all matching up, and it's done a good job there. So now that we know the UVs are correct, we've got the object with different materials applied to it. So yeah, it's always good now that we've got this object ready to go, that we do a little check to ourselves now then. So we know the pivot point's been set. We go ahead, delete all by type, history, go to modify, freeze transformations. And then we've checked that we've named the model itself, and we've named the materials. We know we've done that. Right, so I would say we're ready to go. When it comes to, actually, yeah, I should probably, just because we should really do this SM to show that it's a static mesh, let's keep it to that naming convention that we use. Right, so file, and export selection. Let's go to this little box here. Make sure we are on FBX. You can use OBJ as well, but FBX is what I use generally. We don't need to do too much. Yeah, okay. So when it comes to, let's have a look. Let's take out smoothing groups too. And yeah, you shouldn't need to do too much here. That should be okay for us if we leave it on the default. I've only clicked that smoothing groups one because you do get a warning in Unreal when you import without doing that. So I'm going to say static mesh wall, and that's going to be an FBX export. Now you should be working in a Maya project setup. I'm being naughty at the moment because I'm actually just working in the default Maya scenes area now. When it comes to when you're actually working yourself, you should be working on a proper project setup. So I'm just going to quickly drop this somewhere that I know I'm going to find it in a minute. So I'm just dropping it in my downloads, and I know that's a really messy way to do it, so please don't do this yourselves. I will show you properly how to do it. So yeah, I am just dropping it in the downloads folder just so I can get to it quickly. But please do, when you are working yourself, oh sorry, wrong one. When you're working on your projects yourself, please do go to File, Project Window if it's a brand new project, and that will allow you to make a new, you have to click a new there so you can name it, a new project. Or if you've already made that project, the next time you go to work on it, all you need to do is set project, and then you choose that location. And what it means is, especially if you're bringing in things like textures, it's able to tell Maya then, oh, this is where I'm working right now, so all the textures you need are in this area here, and it knows the pathways that any pathways you've set are referring to are all referring to that folder that you've set the project. So it's a nice clean way to do this now, that so you don't have to worry about opening it up and then a material not showing where it should do because the texture map's somewhere else that's not in the project area that you're working. So do try and do that as much as you can. Now I've got Unreal open in the background already actually, and this was just a very basic nothing environment. So it's if you go to new level, it's an empty environment. I haven't got anything in here yet. What I would say is you want to start thinking about your folder setup. All these are for the third person that we brought in when we made this project file. So what it means is when you press play, you get to run around with the character. So we want to keep that stuff there. I'm going to make a new folder here, and I'm just going to call it my imports, just because it makes sense to me to put stuff in here now and then when I'm starting to bring in my objects for my environment. I'm going to click on this import button in my content browser, and I will just quickly go to my downloads folder. There we go, there's that static mesh wall. And you shouldn't have to do too much here. Let's have a look. I'm not going to create a new material though actually. Although I added materials to that wall, they're not actually what I want to use in Unreal, so it's kind of pointless of me to import this object and have it create just color slots that I'm just using to show where different materials need to go. You'll still see that then they've got name slots, just at this point you won't have anything in, so I'll show you what that means in a moment. I don't need to import textures as well because I haven't got any on there, so I'm going to click on import. We didn't have a warning pop up, and that's because I did that little setting in Maya's FBX export. It doesn't matter if you do. If you get a pop-up that says something about smoothing groups, don't worry. It's not going to ruin anything for us here in Unreal. It's just nicer if you don't have to deal with that, and it's probably a smarter way to send it across anyway. So if you can remember to do that, but if you don't, then don't worry too much. So there we go, we've got our wall in here now, and if we press play, it's looking about the size that we expected it to based on how it looked in Maya. when we look at the wall itself here, you can see that's the static mesh that it's using, and then it's got element 0 and element 1. Now, I didn't bring in the materials. I didn't open the starter content, so I'm kind of limited here. But if I put blue on one slot, that is the exterior wall that I set. And then we've got, let's just put something else on there. Oh, there we go, we've got something on there. Probably not what you want. So there, we've popped something in those slots now, so we've got those slots filled up. You'd obviously put something more suitable on there so that it matches what you need your environment to look like. And then if you press Alt on the keyboard and use your move tool there, can you see we can start stacking them up? And they match up so it doesn't look like we've got any gaps in there or problems. I have duplicated within, it was a bit hard to see there, let's pop that down a bit. I have duplicated within this area, so what it means is that they're all grouped together. If I had it at top level and press Alt, they're actually separate objects. Okay, so just to keep that in mind then, if you can keep them together, it means that you can move them around together. So just show you that again. If it was there and I pressed Alt there just to stack them in, that's part of that whole object now, because I clicked it here and I copied it across inside itself. If I don't do that, then it's going to be a separate object that I have to move separately. So keep having a little look around, have a look at making your own materials. So just as a quick one actually before I stop this video, if you want to have something quite simple, just to kind of start applying colours for now, or placeholder colours, if you press and hold 4 on the key, if you hold 4 on the keyboard and then click with your left mouse, what you'll get is something with 4 variables in there, and what that basically equates to then is we can use it for RGB and alpha. So we can bring in a color value here and put it over here to the base color, so the material shows that as the color. So I'll save that one. I do need to name it because I've just called it new material at the moment. You don't want to do that. So let's say if we were going to do it as exterior wall something. Okay, so I've just got that pink one on there. I'm not going to change it here though. Oh, it's got the wrong thing selected. Right, I'm not going to change it here because what's happened is we've duplicated them. If we duplicated them inside each other, if we change it here, we probably won't have the right result. Because it's not applying it to every single one, and it's going to be a bit of a pain to go through then and then change it. You can if you want to, but it's a little bit of a pain to do that. So if you know that you need to apply it to that whole object, and you need it to be its default settings anyway, if you double click then on your object, you can see its settings here. Oh, this is also where you'd want to check things like your collision. So we've got collision settings that we can do here. If you go to show simple collision, that's the basic collision that's going to be applied to this. On the most part, it should be okay for something like a wall. Where we have problems is if you've done something like an arch where someone needs to walk through, and you say you've done that arch as one object, instead of maybe the T area of it, or half an arch that you can duplicate, then you'd have problems. So just watch out for that. If you're finding that your player doesn't walk where they should, do go to show and collision. Simple collision is going to be the one that shows you what's applied by default, and then we've got complex collision that you may need to use if you need to, if you're having problems. Because what you can do is, if you're having real problems with, say, an arch type of object, you can use complex collision as simple. So it means that it doesn't use a simple collision, and the arch should work like this, and that's fine for testing purposes, so that you can kind of run around in that environment, and you haven't got to worry too much about setting up collision. It's a very, very simple fix that you can do there. It should fix it by doing that. If it doesn't, then you will have to look at the guide that I've set for us, and have a look through adding collision that's more suitable for that. But for this one here, it works for what we need. I'll just take that one off. This is our wall, and these are our elements that we can use for the materials. So when it comes to the change that I wanted to make there, if I do it here for the exterior wall, and I still haven't actually got something for the interior, what it'll do is it'll set it to be this as a default material for that object. If I was to click and drag this one out, that's the material that I want it to be at this stage. So, oops, not wrong button. Then you can stack it up like this, and it should be fine for what you need. Okay. So this is pretty much where we are with this one for now. Just the basics of how you're going to take something from Maya and bring it over to Unreal.